The Business of Art, brought to you by the Video Department.
Been trying to start these things like with us. We're deeming them a soft intro.
Okay.
Not trying to be like, all right, we're here today, the business of art. My name is Matt Bolson. Because at this point, if you're listening, you probably know that I'm hosting the show because you're probably a friend of mine. There's not really anyone else listening.
Well, and it's cool for people to be able to just kind of like roll into an episode.
Yes, exactly.
And then they're like, "Oh, cool! I'm in the seat with them."
We're in the seat. Well, so this is it right now.
Yeah.
So here we are with Carter Cundiff.
Hey guys, how are you?
That was a manufactured soft intro that I think worked.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I'm here to help you with that anytime.
Do you listen to many podcasts?
I love podcasts. And it's funny. There's that meme or whatever you want to call it where they're like the millennials, their like sports car midlife crisis is creating a podcast. And I was like, oh God, why is that so accurate that I want to do it anyway?
That it's too close to home, Carter. That it's too close to home with yours truly.
I was like, well, you know what? I actually do want to start one and we'll see what happens.
Well, and the thing is, I had to, I am probably listen to as many podcasts. I mean, it's hard to listen to more podcasts than I do in a day because if I have time, I am listening to a podcast.
Well, it's that easy background noise that actually keeps you intrigued, especially driving because I'm doing a lot of driving too. I know you probably are. Yeah. Just either between going to the studio or going to networking or just personal life stuff. Always driven all around town.
Where do you live?
So I'm actually in Chester.
Okay.
But I grew up off of Hull Street, that area. So for people that don't really know where that is, it's about 20 minutes from where I am now. And my parents worked in Mechanicsville, and between dancing and show choir and all the different arts and sports that I did, we were all over the place. So
where in Mechanicsville did they work?
So they weren't far from the Raceway.
Okay.
And you probably wouldn't even know the company. So it was called Dometic at their last, one of their last versions of the name.
Right.
Cruise Air, I think, was their name at one point. So they made air conditioning units for yachts and RVs.
Oh,
and so
I did not know that it was for yachts and RVs.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because they were behind a dump where their buildings were. And so it was you're driving through all, you would never know that there's office buildings back behind all that unless you just worked there and you knew. But, I remember going and sitting in the, having a play set up with my mom sometimes because my babysitter was also over there, even though we lived on this side of town. And
did they own this company or they just both work there?
No, my mom and my dad both worked there. My dad was in CAD, so creative aid design, and my mom was a graphic designer.
Oh, CAD,
3D design, yep.
Yeah,
so he built the units, blueprints for the brochures and stuff.
Right.
And then she designed the art for the brochure.
Is CAD still around?
It is. It's definitely still around. It's definitely a bigger beast than it used to be because it's just more technology that is always improving and it's kind of keeping up with it. I know that was what was tough for my dad, when he got closer to retiring. He kind of just had to make the decision of, I think I'm just going to have a retired life, but work a part-time job somewhere to keep making money. But it got to the point where at that particular place, they were starting to lay people off because they were downsizing that particular location because they started out in Florida. So they had those two branches and or plants, I guess.
Florida and Mechanicsville.
Yeah, and it's of course, Florida, right? Because yachts and all that. But it was kind of cool because my mom got to go to Fort Lauderdale at least twice a year for the boat shows, and she got to peacock a little bit and talk to people, and just people had to listen to her,
Yeah.
But
Fort Lauderdale is a cool town too.
It is.
I feel like it's up and coming again. There was a time where it was the place, maybe in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah. And then now it's okay, it's coming back in style, maybe, right?
Yeah, because nobody can afford to live in Miami, so.
Right. Well, and me personally, I'm it's too hot for me. I'm good. I'll be in the in between.
Interesting. Yeah. Virginia's pretty great with weather.
It is. I mean, it's Virginia, you have a little bit of everything if you're willing to drive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Right? And that's something where we've always been that kind of family.
Yeah.
And my partner, his family's the same way. So both of us, and he's a car guy. So we actually don't mind taking a weekend drive to Tennessee and going and doing something, or things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just nice too, because like I think of like California and San Diego, and the weather out there obviously is amazing.
Yeah.
But there's something about the predictability of it that is like almost
Boring
and like disorienting.
Sure. Oh, it's like a new like sense of reality. It's like it's always the same weather.
It's Groundhog Day.
Oh, my best friend, she grew up here, moved out to San Diego for, probably 8 to 10 years. She's now in Texas, but same thing. She would get excited when I'd send her pictures of leaves falling and the seasons changing, because she's like, we don't have those anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And the weather, like I remember going in December to visit her. I think it was like back in 2015, and she was like, okay, pack for it to be a little chilly. And it wasn't even it was in the 70s. And it was December here. And I was like, sure, I'm not bringing a jacket. It's going to feel great there,
I felt crazy today because I wore long pants knowing it was going to be really hot, but I just really don't like it when I see my own legs on the podcast. It just feels unprofessional somehow. Like, I was like,
I gotcha.
I need to be in pants like a gentleman.
Well, and I'm in my, summer season shades, so my legs are much whiter than my upper arms right now.
Okay.
And really, being the pale ginger that I am, it's really the freckles that are making me look a little bit tanner. So
yeah,
I'm blessed with that, so I wear pants too.
Does that affect your relationship with like the beach?
No, I still enjoy it when I want to, but I have to be prepared.
Yeah.
It's reapply as often as possible.
Yeah.
If you touch water, just go reapply, and sit under an umbrella.
Oh yeah. I watched this video with a woman from Australia, and she was just like dark orange, like Australian.
Uh-huh.
And she was like, it was kind of about like, some of the dangers of sunscreen, the chemicals and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about, I was like, I'm not going to try and do an Australian accent, but
Sure.
she was saying that what she does is when she first started, she would sit out in the sun for 15 minutes one day, and then she would go in the shade for either the rest of the day or for at least a couple of hours. And then she would do another 15 minutes. She'd go in. And she would do that for a few days. And then she would start 30 minutes and then do that for a few days. And then eventually she could get to an hour. And now she can spend all day out in the sun.
That's
and
awesome.
that's without ever using any sunscreen. I know she might be riddled with skin cancer. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean,
It's a theory.
yeah, I think that it seems it makes sense to me. Like, it doesn't make sense that like all these bad things that happen to our body would just come from nature. Without it being a reaction to something else that you have eaten that is not from nature, or put on or in your body that is not from nature. Like, I've heard even recently, like clothes, like the dyes and stuff like that can like seep into your skin.
Oh, I mean that's your biggest organ in your body, right? And it's something that with time and age and wisdom, if you want to call that, you think about really, okay, you've got pores. Everything is just seeping in from what you put in your hair, especially for, folks with longer hair, products and things like that. And it kind of really goes down to the base levels and hydrating and moisturizing and things like that. So
I've noticed recently a couple times I've been at like a restaurant or a bar, and they'll like spray a table next to me or the bar next to me, and I'll feel like like the spray will like get on me. I'm like, oh my god,
you're like, what's in that?
what
bowl?
is this?
You're like, I did not consent to that touching me. No, I'm just kidding. The aerosol just kind of like making its way.
Yeah, it really does. That is kind of like, did that just go in my drink too? Like, what's going on?
But also, like, to her theory, it's kind of too with nature as well. It's like moderation, right?
Right.
So I just never also have the intention to want to be so that tan, or you know what I mean? Like, I'm good. And not for any other reason. It's just, I'm like, I don't want to deal with what that's going to do to my body.
The only reason I would is because I would like to spend my later years on the golf course 4 or 5 days a week.
See, that's fair.
So I'll need to, at least from here down, I'll need.
Well, and I've had that fun. I worked as a pool attendant back in high school.
A pool
at
attendant.
Pocahontas State Park.
Okay.
And kind of similar thing where we had, t-shirt, shorts. So I had the tan line from the shorts down and then here down. And then when I just have my bathing suit on, it was that lovely one-piece tan with the big circle on your back. It was nice, and you go out in the evenings and you're going to do stuff and you're dressing in like a dress, and it's just it's gross.
You got to make sure your dress has a back, otherwise you just see that red circle.
Cardigan or something. Yeah. When I say that's really the only reason I can get a little tanner is because I worked there, and I basically had to work for my tan.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
hey, it's whatever.
So you grew up Hull Street area. What schools did you go to?
So Jacobs Road Elementary School, we actually lived, that was like in our backyard.
Okay.
And then Manchester Middle. And then I was in the mass communications program, so I went to Manchester. We initially were districted there.
What? So
Yeah.
in high school, you were in like a specific mass communications program?
Yeah. That
don't
was
even
their
know what you're
specialty
talking
center
about.
for Manchester.
Wow.
Yeah. So they had two actually, because they had the Spanish immersion program.
Okay.
And then they also had mass communications, and then we had the largest like special education center as well.
Okay.
There too. So yeah, that point in my life, I knew I loved photography. I loved to photograph things, capture things in a way. But I also loved words, and I liked what they could do for people and how they could tell stories. Stories have always been the like underlying thing for me. So when at that point I was like, oh, maybe I could be a journalist. I thought that was interesting. And then I found out pretty quickly that I don't like the deadlines for being a journalist. So
It's also like almost not even a career anymore.
right. And you're like, well, I'm like, well, maybe I made a great decision.
Yeah.
You know?
Photography. I mean, yeah, way better in terms of like upward mobility this day and age.
And you can absolutely make it your own. Even the idea of videography, film, man, editing, that is no fun. And I figured that out real quick too. I would always love to work with somebody that did film, but I'll be the photographer on the side.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you do. It is a whole other, it's one thing to take on composition and focus and creating that like atmosphere, and then having to put it in motion, and then it changing as you're doing those things. And it's funny, my partner, he was really into film. He actually was a skateboarder. He did film for his buddies and stuff like that too. So it's really neat for us to bond on those things. He doesn't do it anymore, but
Skating's a big gateway for filmmaking.
it is.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it also like is a gateway to all types of music and things that you can kind of coordinate together that way too, and just all types of people.
Skaters get a bad rap, but
They
it's a
do.
good community for sure.
It is.
They're typically smart people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and they're just like kind of resourceful too.
Yeah.
They find ways to. It really just could be anything. It's just really neat how they kind of band together to figure something out, and their determination.
Yeah.
Because they'll be sitting there trying to accomplish a trick or something, and it could be 10 minutes because they just happened to get it on the first or second try, or it could be 30, 45 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just depends on how bad you want it.
Yeah.
But it's neat how even that community's grown over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And just hearing it from his point of view, but also just folks that I knew growing up that were skateboarders, Yeah.
So did you have any, what were your photography / video experiences like in high school?
So I kind of did a little bit of everything when it came to photography. And what I mean by that is obviously my exposure in mass comm, which less of it was focused on photography. It was more the film, digital media, and the other forms, like some graphic design and current events, things like that. But I also went to the Chesterfield Technical Center, and I got to do a year of that. And got to learn a lot about strobes and lighting and things like what we do in here, but also natural light stuff too, and just kind of a different all over the place editing everything. And then my mom actually, I think it was going into the summer before my senior year, she worked with a photographer pretty often when they did photo shoots for the units and whatnot for her job. And she connected me with one of the guys because they just happened to meet at some networking thing or something. And she's like, so my daughter, he's like, does she want to come in and learn some things? And she's like, I think she would love that. So I got a summer to kind of work at Dementi Studio downtown. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, used to pass by it all the time.
And it's impressive when you think about all the history that's come through there. Actually got to be an assistant for him, set up all his lights, kind of learn how to do all of that, work on my memory with all of it too, because I'm definitely have to repeat it to learn it. And then I got to actually scan in all of the old photos that they just had lying around that needed to be like documented and saved digitally, because they still had like a working darkroom downstairs and all kinds of stuff like that. So I got very lucky in that period of my life being kind of interjected in these different situations where I got to kind of test things out and just be a fly on the wall. I was so timid then that it was, you know, you look back, you're like, oh, I could have seized some of the opportunities a little bit better, but that's also young, and you know, you don't know what you have until it's hindsight, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of like what started it. And then I went to John Tyler to do a like art certificate for the same thing. Kind of, I knew I wanted to do photography, but I was very much, and I'd seen the small business model because my mom opened her own business for her graphic design. But I was not confident, I guess, in taking that route. It's funny how sometimes you feel like you need that example to feel like you can even do it. Yeah. But sometimes even when you have it, you still don't know what to do with it. And I didn't have the confidence, and that's really what I needed to grow. And so honestly, all through up until this point, that's what I've been doing, along with building network and relationships with people and learning how to do it kind of on the fly, but with experience too. And just learning to grow some of those muscles that, you know, I feel like are natural to me now, if that makes sense.
Did you go, so John Tyler was your only post high school education?
That was, I wanted to potentially go to VCU because again, it's down the road and it is an art school, but I really, you know, I realized I didn't really need to do that. And I want to say that I did. I applied one semester, I think it was semester or two after being at John Tyler for that long. And I didn't get in, which totally understandable. There's tons of applicants. That. Really? Well, then I didn't have a strong portfolio, I guess. Okay. But, and I mean, you think about all of the students that are applying every year. So
is there a specific photography program?
I can't even remember now. I just want to say I was probably going into the general arts.
The VCU art. VCU arts is very challenging to get into.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, honestly, I realized it's not really what I needed to get where I'm at now. Not to say that that's wrong for anybody.
Kate said it. Kate said it's wrong.
She said it. Of course she did. I know. I love it. She's like, you don't need to do it.
So let's get
she's
the other
a great
perspective.
Example, right? I mean, it's really whatever is going to make you feel like you got all your tools, right?
Kate looked right into that camera and said it's wrong. I'm not joking.
I love her I love her. I know this and I know it's true. And that's what's cool.
I tend to agree, and this is coming from somebody who
I like it.
Went to VCU, dropped out of VCU, went back to VCU, finished his degree, and then 3 years after that was teaching at VCU. Wow. So I have a deep relationship with that university, but with colleges in general, you visit your friends and you see the things that they are like. So I have a core group of friends. There's 4 of us, and from what I can tell, none of us are doing anything that we studied in college, but all of us are relatively successful. A couple of us are. A couple of them are very successful, very successful. Yeah. And so I don't know. And this is weird because Kate and I were just recording in here, so now I'm like, did I just say this to Kate or have I already said this to Carter? But I think it was just, I think I was saying it to Kate. Yeah. Which is, and now I've completely lost my train of thought. What were we just talking about?
You were saying that the 4 of you, a couple of you are very successful.
Right.
Going through, you didn't start, you're not doing anything that you started doing.
College, and then... Yeah, I'm not sure. I lost my train. But you know what I'll do is I will take what I said in Kate and I'll just insert it right here.
Right.
And I'll cut this out.
You know.
No, this is the first time I've recorded 2 podcasts back to back.
I like it.
Like in the same seat, in the same location. So it is a little bit of a mind
like
screw.
Deja vu.
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
feeling.
like, wait a second. Did I already say this? Because I was just sitting here.
Our minds are fun things.
But yeah, but I mean, you obviously made the choice not to go to college, so. But you still fight for it.
I wouldn't even say that necessarily. Okay. It's more of like whatever you feel is right for you, go for it. And sometimes that means trying it to see if it worked or not. I mean, hey, and I mean maybe obviously there's some careers that you need a degree, go for it. But when it comes to the creative world, you don't necessarily need that. And And for me, those were the steps for me to figure out how I needed to plan the next part of my life. Because it was many years of being in positions where I'm like, it's on me. Whatever I'm doing, I still have to figure out how to pay the bills. I still have to figure out what my next step is. And and the reality of having your own business or working for a small business that's creative too is you got to put in a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so stuff just doesn't appear for you. You have to work for every ounce of that. And that's probably like what you said, like you and your friends are so successful because you've done those things, and it takes trial and error too.
Yeah.
But no, I don't necessarily think you need to go to college. But for me, I felt like that was what I needed to do to figure out what was going up in here in this brain of mine to kind of decipher what I did need to do. Because I was working at that point when I first went to John Tyler. I was working at Walgreens. I was a pharmacy technician. And I have a problem where I can't work somewhere and not try to excel. So I got a like certificate as a pharmacy technician, so I could actually physically work in that Walgreens, right. Because I think it's after like so many months or whatever, you can't technically like count the pills and do all these other things that are just what a certified technician can do. So I did that for a while and then walked myself into a payroll world, and I did payroll for a small accounting firm initially, and then went to Chesterfield County Schools and did payroll for them for about 7 years, 7 years, all while running my own photography business. And it just was tough for me to keep the momentum going for the business side. And I had clients. I really enjoyed the people that I photographed. I'm still photographing a good chunk of those people too, which is really, really incredible because you get to see all of like a decade of seasons of their lives and that they want to come back and share their stories with you, which is really cool. And I'm just such a people person that I love just catching up, and I love this. That's why I like podcasts too, I think.
It is fun.
And so, it was in 2019, Kate had been putting out there that she was doing mentoring, and a lot of it had to do with strobes, flash. And I was like, it's been a while since I've touched those. I've done a little lifestyle stuff. I kind of want to really flex that muscle again, and did a couple of different mentoring things with her. And actually that was right when I had signed on, I paid the invoice, and I was like, cool. And next month or so, we're going to get together. It just so happened that it must have been 2020. Because right around that time when I started mentoring with her, my dad passed away. And so I was like, all right, we got to put this on hold for just a little bit. But it still was like, something about it was just right timing, because then the following year, I kind of kept up with her. She was a mentor with me for just different things, and I casually came in for like a mini session that she does every year, and I brought up the idea of like, what if I just mentored with you like once a month? I just need to keep doing these things. And she was like, I mean, if you didn't have a business, I'd hire you, kind of thing, just because we vibe so well. And Megan, our studio manager, she probably has mentioned, I really vibe well with her, and sometimes in a creative space that's tough. With women, that's tough, So I was like, I wouldn't take that off the table. So we had a conversation probably a month later, and that was in December of 2021. And then beginning of 2022, I started working for them. It was still felt full-time for me, but I was still working my payroll job too. So it was probably another year and a half before I went full-time with her. Best decision I ever made. Yeah. Because it's funny how you tell yourself that you need to have this other stable, quote unquote, job and money. But then really what's happening is you're dividing yourself. And like I said, I already had a problem with not trying to do my best in anything I put myself into. So it's just taking me more and more away from it. So, yeah.
I want to go back to when you were working full-time and doing your own business. Was it Branding by Carter? Is that what the business was at the time?
It was actually Ample Heart Photography.
Okay.
Yep.
The names are so funny.
They are. And the graphic designer I worked with, Alex Cottles, he actually went to John Tyler and then I think eventually VCU. But he he helped me come up with a name because in high school when I just made up a name, I wasn't like an official business. It was like Double C Photography, Carter Cundiff. And then I had one other photographer that I mentored with, and she's like, I'm sure this is not your intention, but when I see Double C, I think of like Double C cups. And I was like,
so funny.
I was like, I don't think people would think that if they know my name, but I was like, maybe I could think of a rebrand.
Yeah.
Plus, it's just was generic. So after doing some doing one-on-ones with him and him helping me with my logo design and all that stuff, which actually this was my design that I ended up getting tattooed on my wrist after I officially closed it with the lawyer I had set up. Because I was like, while this isn't still a business, it's part of what got me here. It's part of me. So that's kind of what I included there. Yeah. But yeah, Ample Heart Photography.
And when you were, it's just funny that the Double C thing, and now you guys do boudoir photography. So that would have been really good.
Right.
When you were, what was the name of the business? It was the Ample, was when you were...
When I was on my own. Yeah. Ample Heart Photography.
And so were you mostly word of mouth? Is that how you're finding clients?
Yeah, mostly, because it was a lot of friends from high school, couples, and what it ended up turning into was more couples wanting not even engagement pictures. It was more we just want couples photos. Yeah. So it was anniversaries and things like that, and then it turned into weddings and it's funny now that I'm kind of talking this out. I've had different seasons of. There was another creative that I really connected with, one in high school. That was my friend that went to San Diego, and then another one in college. And at every time it was, maybe we could do something together. So there was always my need or my desire to have a community in whatever the business was that I wanted. And I think then I realized that's what kind of clicked when Kate and I talked, where I was like, I just want to be a part of something. And there's certain aspects I don't want to have to handle anymore.
Right.
And that was a huge part of the business side, because I felt like I always had to get my mind straight and go, okay, so I'm really going to focus on the books of it. I'm really going to focus on the generation of it. And it takes you away from the creative side and some of the person to person thing. And then also just the nerves and saying, hey, this is what my prices are and this is why they're that way, or finding the right people that understand the value in that. And that was probably one of the first major things that when I joined Kate's team was understanding that my value is what it is, and that's okay to ask that of people that are coming in. You know what I mean?
Kate talked about this quite a bit.
Did she?
Yeah.
Really?
She talked about money quite a bit, in an interesting way.
Oh, and that's always been her.
Yeah.
And that's what I've thought was interesting and attractive when I was mentoring with her, because she wasn't afraid to talk about money. And not that women are. I feel like it's, especially now, there's a lot more women that are advocating for that. But she spoke from an interesting place of the way that her family saw money and what her example was. And then she's like, you know what, I'm going to make it my own. I can. And then she's going to claim it. Right. Yeah. So it gave me those tools on top of others that I'd learned. But then it was okay, here's the backbone to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so, like you said, most of the stuff you were doing was probably natural light, outdoor type stuff.
Yep.
What sort of variations did you do as you were growing? Were you doing any studio stuff or?
No studio stuff. Any studio stuff that I did have in my portfolio was from the tech center or, I guess really that, because I just didn't have access to that. It got to a point where there was a studio in Ashland from another photographer opened up. Still very natural light, which is kind of some of what we do in here. That white wall behind you, we can kind of make, with the window light, make it natural light, but we can also make strobes look that way. But I kind of played around with that too. I was starting to get to the side of, okay, I want to get creative. I like having sets. I like them to feel more natural, but I like having more than just the subject. Or, because I guess I don't know if it felt less intimidating, but it's something I've always been attracted to. I'm somebody that loves movies, and I kind of see memories and things like movie reels. So that's kind of how I want to show it on my end for the client.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could explain it any better to the audience. I think you did a great job.
Oh, cool.
There was one thing I know that we wanted to talk about, which is the grief program that you're working on.
That campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Sure. So mentioned in your networking group that there's a campaign that I'm starting, and it's called the, I've been calling it the Grief Campaign. I think we've kind of like retitled it a little bit, which I can give you and you can flash on the screen. No, I'm just kidding. That's me listening to all the podcasts, right? No, a lot of comedian podcasts that I listen to. So it's like, I personally have lost some key people in my life. One major life that I lost was actually my partner's dad. We lost him, I want to say it was in 2018. I always get the 2017 or 2018 mixed up. Felt very tragic. It was kind of drawn out, but that was one version of grief. And then I lost my dad in 2020 due to massive stroke, unexpected. I'm positive that stress was a huge key factor in that happening. But it was one of those things where you wake up one morning, you get a phone call from your brother at 6 a.m. and that's not normal. Mm-hmm. Then you rush into the hospital, and then the next day, which is 2 days before his 63rd birthday, and you have to make the decision that, him living as a vegetable is not you just have to make really hard decisions. Mm-hmm. And I was in my probably mid to late 20s at that point. So just not what I expected. It's funny how as we get older, old looks older. Like we start to go, 50s is not old. 60s is not old now that my parents are those ages. Yeah. And then that just kind of increases, I feel like, as you go. But
also humans look younger, older.
Yes.
That's part of it too.
Yeah. Well, when you said your age a minute ago, if you weren't kidding, I was like,
no.
Really? No. Okay. You look young. And you are young. That's the thing. Yeah. But so since then, I've been feeling like really called to create something around that for people. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I actually had a campaign that I was drawn to about, it was going to be faces, where almost just capturing people's expressions and being kind of like just highlighting the parts of you that are just unique and special and wonderful. And that's how I see people too. Maybe that's part of it. But I said, I want to tie something else. There needs to be some other sentiment to it, and I feel like it's missing. So I just couldn't kind of put it out there. And then I was coming home from getting dinner one night, and I saw these two men sitting by a truck, and one of them just made me think of my dad. I don't know if it was something he did. It definitely wasn't what he looked like, but, and I just start bawling, and it came to me. And I said, you know what? I remember sending Kate a voice memo, and I'm like, this is what I need to do. So this campaign is revolved around, honoring your person that you're grieving. And I mean, this could also be a season too, but for me specifically, it's the person. So getting somebody to come in, and we're going to create a session around this person you want to honor, because not everybody has the opportunity to create things for themselves, especially because we all grieve differently. We're not creatives, but the way that you can honor them, sometimes you just don't really know how to bring that to fruition, or you just want to talk about them. You just want to show off who they are and not disappear, So what I'll have you do is come in, we'll chat and get to know you, get to know this person that you're trying to honor, and create a couple of different products for you. So it'd be, you come in, you get one outfit that you're dressed in, and that could be, something that feels like the essence of them. My idea is getting your expressions, and sometimes that could be, I have a dimple like my father, like in my case, or I have a joy and laughter that was very similar to him. Like we kind of resemble each other when you see it. So that honoring side is getting 9 photos and putting them in a 9-up. And what that looks like for y'all that don't know what that is think of like the Brady Bunch squares in their intro, and them just all like piled in together, but that's in a frame. So for mine, and I think I showed you a couple of the photos, it's just, for me, it felt important to show off the tears, the joy and the things that I remember him by, but also like honoring this season that I'm in, and that, because it's not a season that is going to end. It's forever once you lose somebody, right? But then also in the same breath, I want to create a new memory with that person for you. So that could be a prop that you bring in, like a scarf, or for me, it was a hat. My dad he liked to dance too. And him and my mom used to do like shag dancing back in the day and like line dancing and stuff. And so the photo that I chose of me standalone to make that new memory was just me dancing, and you like just see my arm up in the air and me smiling and twirling. And it just felt right. You know what I mean? So creating those memories to like honor them, but then also to create new memories with them, because for me, that was one thing that felt really difficult. I felt like, man, they're not physically here anymore. So all you think about are the things that they're missing that you're so proud to share with them, right? But then you're like, but no, I can make this something with them. Like I can make them a part of something new, but just have to do it in a different way.
Yeah.
So hopefully that explains.
Have you launched this already?
So we're getting ready to launch it. We're setting up the webpage for it. Megan's getting me all straight there, and we're ordering the product so that I can show it off to people online, but also then show it to them like when they're here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's really lovely. And I think I told you that I want to talk to my in-laws about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you might not even be aware of this, but Virginia Tech Hokies, when they play football, do you know that they play Enter Sandman the Metallica song, Enter Sandman?
Yeah.
So they've been playing that. I just read, I think it's since like 99 or something like that. Like, it's like the intro song. The stadium gets so crazy. Cool. So my wife's father, who passed, was a huge Hokies fan. And I think the story is that someone, like his best buddy from Tech, like maybe even his college roommate, when he passed, he asked my mother-in-law, he was like, do you think it would be okay if like we played Enter Sandman at the funeral?
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
And I think my mother-in-law was like, I don't know. I don't think that's appropriate. And he did it anyway.
Those things are always a fun time. You never know what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, it was needed because it was very sad, obviously, at the very beginning. But the reason I brought that up is because I just saw that Metallica and Virginia Tech have officially come together to offer merch.
Oh, cool.
So there was like Enter Sandman Hokie merch now available.
Cool. That is so, no, I didn't know that, but that's really cool that they're banded together.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's a thing now, so we're just going to do this.
Yeah. So maybe, so I'll have to get some of that merch and try and get them in here. But I really I would like to get my mother-in-law in here because she does not, even if it's not for that project, just to get her in here to do some photos because she does not like photos of herself.
And I always love when people say that term, especially when we're on consult calls, because that's another part of what we do. One, it's all about the experience. It's not just coming in for photos. It's a whole lot more. But when a lot of women, especially because our clientele is usually 40 and up is what we work a lot with, and women. And it's not uncommon that they'll say, I've never had a photo that I liked of me. I'll ask people to show me the photo and I'll make them delete it, kind of thing. And what we do in here isn't just putting you in front of a camera and posing you. We're getting the personality out of you. And that's always where we're like, okay, well, I would love for you to come in because I would love to change that for you. It's definitely a mission for us to celebrate women in every way possible and making it a customized experience because we, of course, do the hair and makeup. We have the gowns and all of the fun wardrobe, and we have a personal stylist, Emmeline. But, it's really about the transformation through all of it. So that would be awesome to have your mother-in-law come in.
How long do you spend with clients usually?
So for a portrait session, we usually start around 10 a.m. and we're done by 2 p.m. Okay. So they're in here for a handful of hours, but it starts with, the hair and makeup. That could be an hour and a half. If, you want to come in and have that done. And we have some women that aren't, makeup girls. They don't do their hair like that. So that's okay too. We are open to whatever you feel most comfortable and confident in. Yeah. And then just kind of going from there. We've kind of structured our collections now where depending on the collection that you choose will depend on the number of outfits that we'll photograph you in. So anywhere from 2 to 4, especially with the 40 over 40 campaign we were talking to you about. And then the cool thing is we actually at the very end of the session, we'll actually go through all of the photos we took of you that day. And then depending on which collection you fall within, that will determine on the number of images you can take away with you. And then the products that we'll offer. Because that's another big piece is making sure that you have like physical representation in your home because you deserve it, one, but also, man, if I didn't have like 5x7 printed pictures of my dad, there's some memories that would be like gone. And, you know, even after all the moving that they've done, all the moving I've done, like I still have boxes, like shoe boxes of photos. And it's just like, it's cool how you transport back to a time, back to smells, back to like feelings when you see certain photos. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, smells for sure. It's a weird one.
It is.
It is so weird.
And it's just like, I have this one picture in mind where it's when I was first born, my parents, they had a house out in Henrico, and there's just one like ratty couch that they probably took from like a couple other places with them. But it's like, it feels like love.
Yeah.
Because you remember that for a period of time and then we had to get rid of it. But it's, you know, it's just cool.
Yeah. I remember the thing that I forgot about talking about earlier that I told Kate, which was I was talking to my wife yesterday about how if I had not gone to college, become an electrician's apprentice, become a master electrician, start my business by the time I'm 25, we are multimillionaires by now. Right. Because that is like, well, that's what we're talking about with college and like trades and and especially if you have a trade that you are like at the master level at and you're an entrepreneur, that is a powerful tool. And you can like do, and it doesn't take much like to, you do 6 figures, like mid 6 figures, 3 to 5 to 10 years in a row. Yep. That's like, that builds.
And then
the interest on that.
And that's like prior to you adding team members on. And then it's like, once you figure that part out too, cause that's a whole, like I love that people promote adding on to your team, but make sure you understand the financials of that too. Yeah. And that's just coming from the payroll world. Like, make sure that you know what you're paying them and you're paying for them because it's, you know, all these other taxes and stuff that come into play. But,
exactly.
And there's just a lot of minutia to it. I mean, and that's what I think is cool about our setup as creatives is that she's flexible in some degrees, you know, she's like, here's what we're starting out as, but I'm always open for you to talk to me about if you think there's another avenue or there's something you want to add on and we can kind of create another stream for you here. She's all about like, she'll always say there's no glass ceiling. So let's just go with whatever you feel like you're called to do and let's make it happen.
Talk to me about the 40 over 40 campaign.
Yeah. So for our 40 over 40, it's for ladies 40 and up. They come in and they get a photo shoot experience, hair and makeup. We actually, so 2 to 4 outfits, they get personally styled by our personal stylist, Emmeline. And what's cool about her is she's not like, oh, let me turn you into fashionista. It's, okay, what's your personality? What's your body shape? What looks best on you? What are your measurements? And then what is your style? Okay, how can we elevate that a little bit? Because she's not trying to change you. And because that's not what we do in here. She wants to just enhance what you already have and what you love. Because when you love what you're wearing, you feel confident, and that shows up in the photos. And that's where I pull that into my branding work all the time with my branding clients because, yeah, you can buy a new fancy suit or outfit or whatever, but if you don't feel good in it, you're going to show that through your photos, and then that's not going to be a good representation of your brand. Right. People aren't going to want to work with you because you look fake or just not whatever.
Or just not right.
Yeah. I mean, people can sense that, especially now because there's everything blasted at them, whether it's the same industry or different industries, and you have to really filter what's real and what's not. But you know, so we have Emmeline, a personal stylist, and then you'll come in for like a full day. Usually start at 10, get done around 2:30. At least for me, Kate's a little bit faster than I am. And then we go through all the outfits, photograph you in them, and then, you know, we get to go through them at the end and pick your favorites. The cool thing though, as also what's included in that is we have a gala event at the end of each season. So what that is it's honoring those women that are part of the campaign. They actually get to bring 2 additional guests. So it's not an all ladies event. So it could be partners, it could be kids, you know, siblings, whatever. just bring them on, and it's like a red carpet event is what we call it. So we literally roll out a red carpet. You walk in, you get photographed. We actually have like one of those like infinity backdrop walls where like you see the celebrities, pose in front of. So you get your moment, and then we also have like memories from the day. Catered signature cocktails. We have music, usually one of those 3D or the 360 photo booth things. But what's like the most impactful is every woman chooses one of their own photos from their gallery, and they get displayed. So you just get to see a sea of all these beautiful personalities. And like and I'm getting chills. It's just so corny, but like this is how much I love this experience, and like that we get to do this because I'm a community person. So we have anything from a headshot to a glamorous photo to somebody just comfortable and cozy to boudoir, like fine art nudes that Kate does sometimes. And they're just displayed everywhere, and you get to see all these like lovely humans just honored when they usually are honoring everyone else.
And is this like something that someone knows they're signing up for when they're buying their package?
Yes.
Okay.
So they call in specifically usually for the campaign, or if they've inquired with us and they set up a consult call, because that's how everybody gets filtered into us. We always get on the phone with you first, make sure that we're both the right fit, and that what you're looking for in your photos is what we offer. Because sometimes folks don't care about showing off who they are. They don't care about the story that you're trying to tell. Maybe they're not going through, everybody's going through a transformational journey, let's be real, but maybe that's not what they're trying to do with photos. Maybe they just want a transaction, you know what I mean? And this is so much more than that. We ask the kind of like in-depth, deep questions on that first call. And that usually tells us if we're a good fit for each other or not. And then we also offer financing options too, where we have like an in-house payment plan and a financing like credit card, so that for folks that feel like, man, I just don't know if I can like swing that price right now, because we are a bit of an investment, but that makes it more accessible for them. Because again, we do feel like all women should have an opportunity like this, and they deserve it. Nobody's excluded because they can't afford to, maybe, you know what I mean? But if you feel like this is meant for you and you've got a story to tell, we want you in here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for women that are always taking care of other people, that's generally what our client is. Or they're so driven in their career. They literally, it's us figuring out like little pockets of time where we can just get on another Zoom call with them. Because after the consult call, they've booked, we've set up a session date. I get on another call with them on Zoom, and we start talking about all the visions and the ideas. I'm like, okay, so I know we said that you want to feel empowered and joyful. What do those things mean to you? Like, how does that look when you're like envisioning the legacy of who you are? Like when you see that photo that you want to be reminded of every day. And then we'll go into like what textures and colors that looks like. Where do we even think about displaying these images on your wall in your home or wherever? And then that really gets us into the nitty gritty of, okay, what kind of set do I put up for them? What kind of lighting does that meet? I can't do Vanity Fair for something that feels, it could, but like, I'm not going to do a Vanity Fair for
cowboy.
Well, I've done that, but
I just got cowboy in my head.
Bohemian,
that was the only thing that goes in my head.
Bohemian, like chill vibes kind of thing. That might be more of a natural light situation. Or Hollywood glam, if you feel like you're just a jeans and a t-shirt girl that likes to be outdoors. They're different vibes, but also it like lets the different outfits and things like that give them the opportunity to be these different facets of who they are. And that's a cool thing too, because sometimes I'll have women, we'll get on those calls, we'll plan out these outfits. And I've had recently a couple of clients text me on the way, I just want to be this type of woman today. So let's change that last outfit completely kind of thing. And we go a whole different direction. And it's always like even better than maybe what we planned, because we just let ourselves get creative.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of, if that explains what you're.
Yeah, typically any kind of like last minute inspiration like that, there's a reason.
Well, it takes the pressure off, right?
Yeah.
Like, what does that feel like for you and what you do?
In terms of what?
Well, because I feel like when we've talked about your work and who you work with, it's usually very project based, and they have a very specific idea of like how it needs to be displayed for marketing or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And you're probably like bound within certain types of rules like what they're even allowed to share, talk about appropriateness. Like, do you ever really get to kind of like go free and play and have fun, or do you do like separate things for yourself?
Yes.
Okay. I know that's like a compound
No, yes.
Fair.
I do not very often get to creatively express myself in my day-to-day job.
Okay.
That being said, I'm still using a lot of the same tools, so it still scratches the same itch in some ways.
I gotcha.
And my number one thing that I like to do is collaborate. So regardless, I'm always collaborating. If somebody's telling me what to do, that's still a collaboration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
But yeah, no, and I am just now at the ripe old age of starting to explore some more. I have never done I've never done just a personal film that wasn't tied to like a competition or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So I've been working on one now. We're kind of in the challenge of location hunting right now.
Cool.
'Cause it's a dance piece. There's one line of dialogue at the very end, but otherwise it's all dance. And so locations are very important because it's all visual. But I'm excited about that and working with some clients who I am working with someone who is a client of mine, and we are collaborating to do this dance film. So that's exciting. And then, yeah, I've been getting into, I've always been a singer. I've always been a theater person.
Yeah.
So been trying to put some feelers out there about starting a band.
Oh, cool.
Just do bars and breweries and stuff like that.
Yeah. I didn't know you sang. I knew you did theater.
Yeah.
But that's awesome.
I was pretty much exclusively musical theater. Like I did some plays just because there was not a ton of like 6-foot dudes to do roles. So like I was just like there, and people cast me because I was there. Yeah. And I could stand there, and then I could stand there and say my lines.
You probably had like minimal lines too, to some degree.
Yeah, no, but music was always the thing, and that's sort of why we were talking about editing earlier. That is the one thing that really brings me home and like really makes me comfortable when I'm editing is like music. I just like vibrate with music all the time. You can ask my wife. I'm constantly singing made up songs.
Yes, we do.
And so that is like the big thing, and what I try and bring uniquely to my projects is a different understanding of how and that's what I learned a theater director is. A theater director is somebody who is getting the best artists together and saying, all right, these are the parameters, go and make your art, and I'm going to give you adjustments here and here and here and here. Right. But the theater director's job is not to create something from nothing. That is not their job. The script has already done that.
Yeah.
Right. And then the set designer is going to do that, and the lighting designer and the costume designer, they're going to do that. You don't create something from nothing. You're a guide.
Yeah.
And I learned that directing theater, and film is that with like 8 different new departments to also command.
And they're all doing their jobs at the same time and at different times.
Yes, and maybe in different locations.
Right.
And like
and you're like, oh, snap.
And so, but I just feel really comfortable in that world and trying to find more opportunities to be, and we've kind of talked about this offline, and we'll talk more about it offline and eventually online, but trying to find trying to find other, I think I was saying more other, trying to find other opportunities to put myself in a leadership position.
Yeah, I like that.
Because that's where I thrive, and that's where I'm happiest, and that's where like my brain's on fire in a good way.
Yes.
So
I totally get that.
Yeah.
And just getting to, and there's a lot to be said for being a creative, creating for other folks. And I agree with you. I'm also somebody that I love the collaboration because there's an element that I probably may not have thought of, whether that's my own experience that I don't have it, or just no reference at all, just for whatever reason. It takes that one person saying this one detail, and then it takes your creativity in a whole other whirlwind. And it's so cool. But and just giving yourself space to kind of create for the sake of creating, which it sounds like, you're getting to do that. And having with school and doing creative stuff in school, it's always for maybe like a grade or like a yes, you did it, great job. And that's not what creating really should be about, because it's generated in a very different way. So then you burn out if you don't like give yourself the other fun time. That sounds really cool though. I'm excited to see where that, like, how that evolves.
Yeah, we'll see. And I think our sort of community project that we're working on behind the scenes is going to be big for just opening of ideas. Like I'll just say, I was talking with someone yesterday and we were talking about this, and I just had this idea of like, what if like we did a collab? I'm gonna put it out into the universe, like you said.
Please.
What if we did a collab with Richmond Ballet and we got like 3 to 5 local hip hop artists and like took their like biggest hits, and Richmond Ballet did a dance to their hip hop, and the hip hop artists are on stage doing the hip hop while the dancers are doing it.
Yes.
Like that's like the kind of thing that I'm thinking about all the time.
That's
and
so cool.
Trying to foster places and people who want to do those kinds of things. And the challenge is bringing it back to the podcast and in all seriousness is like, in order to sustain these things, there has to be some sort of business element to it. Like there has to be, you can ask somebody to volunteer for something once, but like,
how passionate are they really to keep doing it?
Yeah, and like, I don't want to ask them to volunteer. Like,
That's true.
I want them to get paid what they're worth, or at least like get something for their time. So that's kind of one of the things that like trips me up in my head from even starting projects. Sometimes it's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to pay someone, but I think that's the wrong attitude.
I think it's you, like what you just did, where you're putting it into the universe and then you keep talking about it enough where people are like, ooh, okay, because I'm sitting here going, man, just to be behind the scenes of some of those projects you're talking about is something I would just love to do and put my hands in, and then figure out how I can be a volunteer, like just how to be in that environment, because it's interesting to me, because I like to learn about random things, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like somebody like me or someone like that goes, oh, I didn't even know that could be a possibility. And just being around it is enough at first, but then maybe you could come up together or with a collective of people of like, okay, how can we make this something that is beneficial for everyone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or are we just okay with being able to do this for the love of doing it and the love of creation, and then the result is like what we get out of it?
Right.
You know, I don't know. Keep putting it out there.
Yeah, and this podcast has opened up my eyes into all sorts of different ways to think about that. Because like, talk to one person who probably like one of the more talented musicians I'll talk to, but they decided not to do it as a profession because they wanted to stay in love with it. And I'm like, God dang it, that is so healthy.
That is healthy.
That is so healthy.
Well, and I was a little afraid of that when I went full time.
Yeah.
I've been working for this goal, going full-time photography for so long. I was like, and I get tired of stuff. That's why I didn't love other things, you know, but it's because they weren't right for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we have enough, at least for me, there's enough of like, it's a change and a challenge with different clients. They're all different. So that's enough change for me where I'm happy about it. But I also have enough control, because I do have some of my OCDs and my things that like, I do like to be able to have this sense of control. And that's the experience that I've got and the things that I can just pull from, you know what I mean? To make those different things for each person happen, you know? So, yeah.
Well, here is the question that I ask everyone as we're coming to the end of our time.
Cool.
Which is, what advice would you have for a young person who is looking to become a professional? It could be in photography. It could be in a different art.
Okay.
But just generally, what are your thoughts?
What's something to kind of consider doing that? I would say that, especially if you're doing something, whether that's creative or you're working for yourself, mindset, you're always going to be evolving and working on your own mindset. You can't control other people and the circumstances you get into, but you can control or work on getting tools to control how you mitigate them, how you work through a situation. Because, I mean, until you have the tools and the know and the experience, you aren't always going to hit it every time. One, whether like with what you're doing or how you react to it. So like, give yourself some understanding and just reflect. Like, self-reflection is huge for me. But also knowing that there's like being open to always trying to learn something to grow. Not so much that you feel like you're just always intaking information and not putting out, but like just continue to work on your mindset and your mental around whatever it is that you're trying to work towards, because one, it's going to change and evolve through each like level of thing or success. But yeah, I would say that's probably the main thing that I've had to like work on keeping in check. And with each new season, I've got tools there, but then I'm gonna have to like switch them up. I've got to like get the new and improved wrench to work on the thing. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's probably
know what you mean.
my advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different tools will be applicable for different seasons of your life.
Yeah, and it's kind of like if you're working on a car, yeah, you could kind of diagnose the overall general problem, but sometimes that general problem has 3 other things tied to it.
Right.
So just fixing that one.
That's true with your body
thing.
too.
Yeah.
Your ankle's hurting because your hip is messed up.
You got it.
Your
Yep.
right ankle hurts
Yep.
because your left hip is messed up.
You got it.
That's how it works.
And if you don't figure out what the root is, and that takes time and
Right.
extra self-reflection sometimes.
And your left hip hurts because you have a bad bed and you're sitting 8 hours a day. Like, so there's
and you're like a pretzel when you sleep. That's me.
You got to like work out, and then like eventually like everything will take care of itself. Kind of.
It is. It's just always like trying to keep the things that you need for yourself in check, and then putting out for others. Because I also was I was definitely a people pleaser growing up. So
Sure.
I had to work on you first, figure out, how things are, like set yourself up, reset, and then you can put out into the universe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, Carter Cundiff, double C. Thank you so much. I know I will be seeing you very soon.
Yes. Thanks, Matt. It was
Thanks for
awesome.
coming on the pod.